Arsenal have absolutely smashed Chelsea and go top of the Premier League table, making their goal difference absolutely huge on Man City and put a lot of pressure on Guardiola's men. We're going to talk about all the goals in this video and break down what went so right for Arsenal and what went so wrong for Chelsea. It was absolutely embarrassing for Mauricio Pochettino today, but Arsenal were absolutely superb. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Obviously, we're covering Man City's fixture against Brighton away, which is now so huge. And Arsenal, all they can do is put pressure on Man City. It's very reminiscent of maybe the Aguero season, where every week Man City were able to put pressure on Man United when Man City needed Man United to drop points. I remember an Everton game in particular where Man United dropped points because of that pressure. Arsenal can only do that from now on in, and City have to drop points for Arsenal, and they're doing the best that they can do. I think the Wolves win was really underrated. It was boring, but they ground it out, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans would wish that they could have at least been a boring 0-0 or 1-0 win against Aston Villa the week prior. But they're back to their best. Arsenal 5-0, absolutely smashed Chelsea. The writing was on the wall in the first minute. A ball gets played around. I think Ben White plays the ball around, or Odegaard, someone on that right-hand flank plays it around, and it's just offside from Havertz, I think it is. But in the first 60 seconds, someone was running in behind Badiashile, and you just think, wow, this Chelsea side are as open and as vulnerable as they probably have been for most of the season, to be honest. And then Trossard gets it on his left foot, fires it down by Petrovic. I don't think it's a nutmeg. It's just underneath his arm. It's really poor keeping, and you're 1-0 down at the Emirates. The way Arsenal can turn you over if they feel like it. And I think that the Champions League hoodoo is a little bit behind them now, and they were playing as if they have no pressure on. They were playing as if they'd already won the Premier League title. And maybe Arsenal have this kind of aspect to them where leading the pack, they're not as good as a side that maybe want to chase, that maybe can see the finish line ahead of them, and maybe they're in a beneficial position in that way. That's just a narrative. Obviously, you'd rather have the points, and Arsenal fans would rather be top of the table right now. But all they could do was score early and put a lot of pressure on Chelsea, and they did that. But this is so, reminiscent of Chelsea all season. They had chances. Nicholas Jackson had a beautiful chance in the first half, and he scuffs it, and you just think... And there's even a chance to nick it away from the keeper, and he kind of... I think he handballs it when he's trying to header it, and the ball comes across from Gilchrist, I think it is, and he kind of is afraid of heading the ball. Jackson today had 3 big chances, and by half-time, it's not 5-0 at half-time. It's not like Arsenal were 5-0 up and they put the pressure off in the second half and they've eased off a little bit. It was 1-0. And Arsenal didn't have loads of chances after they scored. Chelsea shut up shop a little bit. They were a little bit more compact. Arsenal did have a couple of chances, but they weren't big chances. And it could have easily gone into the second half 1-1. But obviously it just was 1-0. So Chelsea in the second half, they capitulated. It was absolutely embarrassing how they did, in my opinion. And how Pochettino wasn't after the second goal. We'll talk about it in a minute. He wasn't able to kind of get a message across to the players to be conservative, to be compact. And it was an absolute embarrassment of how to run a football game at the highest level, because these Chelsea players have shown against the likes of Man City, Spurs, Arsenal at Stamford Bridge, Liverpool in the League Cup final, City for large parts of the FA Cup semi-final, that they can compete against the Big Six. There are some massive gaps in the squad, but again, in this game, it screamed to me a real lack of leadership on the pitch. I think Thiago Silva starts this game, and I think it finishes 1 or 2-0. I really do. And that's not to discredit Arsenal. They were more than good enough to score 5 or 6 today. But there's this aspect of being conservative and shutting up shop a little bit when you know you're getting played through. And there are moments where the Arsenal midfield ran through Chelsea like Chelsea were Lurpak lightly salted. Ben White scores the second goal, is a rebound. It kind of bubbles all over the penalty box. It's a beautiful little finish on his left foot. And obviously his second goal, this kind of weird kind of chipped cross to the back post that ends up in the back of the net. Absolutely beautiful strike if he meant it. Obviously he's kind of there celebrating, telling the other Arsenal players that he didn't quite mean it. I think we could all read that from what was being shown on TV. But nonetheless, it was still a position where Ben White had so much time to almost perfectly pick out a cross that could also obviously loop the keeper. And if it didn't loop the keeper, I think someone would have scored it if it was probably not Kai Havertz or Trossard. So 1,000,000%. Ben White was absolutely superb today. Kai Havertz, this is the narrative that Chelsea fans will not like. The way Kai Havertz buried 2 chances where we've been critical of him at Chelsea, we've been critical of him for Arsenal when he first joined. Those chances where he's got to hit things hard, he's got to be aggressive, he's got to bully centre-backs. And he held, I think it's Dizazi, I might be wrong. No, it's not Dizazi at all. And this probably plays into Kai Havertz scoring that goal where he raises it into the net, because he's running across the face of the box. And it's the left-back Cucurella that's kind of tracking him down. Gilchrist is nowhere to be seen. Dizazi and Badashie are completely at odds and completely leaving too much space. And Kai Havertz kind of does his dart and run across. His movement this season has been absolutely fantastic, Kai Havertz. And 1,000,000%, Cucurella should not be the guy tracking him from that position. It's different if it's Saka running across the face of the box or anything like that, then Cucurella should be coming across. But this kind of weird angle that Cucurella is coming from, because there's no other defensive cover, it's so poor. It really is. And Chelsea are in a world of pain defensively. This back four wouldn't be a top 10 back four. And it's just the fact that Cole Palmer is keeping them in that kind of top 10 discussion, really. But the back four is absolutely shocking. In my opinion, the keeper as well, who I thought has been decent this season, but in this performance, in this game, shocking. He raises it into the roof of the net. He bullies Cucurella. Kai Havertz did that a few times today. He bullied a few players, and it's a beautiful finish. And then the one where he kind of gets it on, just on the edge of the box, I think it is, and then on his left foot, hits it off the post. It's a beautiful strike. And Arsenal are in dreamland. Kai Havertz is in dreamland. I know it was Ben White that technically made it 5, but those goals all came very, very quick together, and Arsenal were in absolute dreamland, because they've done the utmost today. They put as much maximum pressure on Man City, if you include goal difference, which absolutely could happen, especially if City draw a game. Different if City lose a game and Arsenal keep winning, then points will be the difference maker. But goal difference could really come into it between Arsenal and Man City. And it's a huge, huge moment for Arsenal that look like a side so in form. They'll be so heartbroken that they couldn't get the job done against Aston Villa at home, in my opinion. That'll be the one, a bit like Southampton last season, for example, where they'll be absolutely gutted, because Arsenal can really do this to sides. They can really turn the screw. And we had to shout out a few players. Firstly, Ben White. I think he's been, the most well-rounded performer in the back line for Arsenal this season. Have to shout out Kirill, have to shout out Tomiyasu. Gabriel and Saliba have been fantastic. Saliba's been slightly better than Gabriel. Gabriel had a bit of a stinker against Bayern Munich. Saliba wasn't fantastic either. And David Raya's been decent this season. But Ben White's been the one where I think he could slot into the Bayern Munich side. He could slot into Real Madrid instead of Carvajal, 1,000,000%. As an example of a top level side. He could slot into Man City quite easily, in my opinion. Superb today. And when someone like Ben White's getting 2 goals, it's a disaster class from Chelsea. The midfield today it was a really nice little adjustment from Mikel Arteta to not use Jorginho. I think there would have been a temptation to do that just for ball control and possession, if you're worried about Chelsea breaking, for example. But I think he would have realised that Chelsea were a little bit leggy after the FA Cup semi-final. It was a very big pitch. Obviously, Wembley, it's a very hard place to come out of and kind of have energy in the legs. I think Partey offered a little bit more physicality. He was able to break things up quite well. And really, he ran the show, him and Odegaard and Declan Rice. And it's ironic, I think, that Mikel Arteta uses the midfield that Arsenal fans at the start of the season were crying out for. And we've seen it very, very rarely. Even when Thomas Partey was fully fit at the start of the season, he was being played at right back, which I don't really get, because I think Thomas Partey, I think it was a game against Luton Town at home where Arsenal fans weren't convinced about his fitness and his sharpness, for example. But if he was fit for the Man City game, for example, if he was fit for the Aston Villa game, where Aston Villa's midfield had a bit more power about them, even the Bayern Munich games, where Jorginho had a heavy role in both games, could Thomas Partey have been used a bit more charitably by Mikel Arteta, given more time, given the opportunity to be the midfielder that last season, let's have it right, he was probably the second best DM in the league last season. He's been nowhere to be seen because of injury. When he comes back, I think Mikel Arteta, if they don't win the league this season, will be a little bit gutted that he wasn't included in the fold in the same way that maybe other players have been trusted, like Bukayo Saka, who carries knocks and stuff like that. Same with Martinelli. The front three, Trossard, what a bargain. The ball around to Kai Havertz. Was that him? Yeah, it might have been him. Might have been him. Yeah, I think he plays the ball. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he plays the ball around the corner for Kai Havertz. It's very reminiscent of when Ben Chilwell had an easy opportunity to do that in the FA Cup semi-final against Man City. So those kind of balls are pretty straightforward for a professional like that. And it just reminded me of the Ben Chilwell opportunity to do that into Mudryk, I think it was, which he didn't do. But the front three was interesting today. Saka looked lively. He caused a lot of havoc and fed the ball into Havertz for his second goal, I think it was. Havertz and Trossard today looked very, very good. When Havertz is dropping deep, Trossard has that ball around the corner and he can run through on goal. And Trossard was very, very good today. Very, very strong performance from Arsenal. All they can do now is put pressure on Man City from afar, and to have those points above Man City, where Man City have to go and win games of football, especially difficult ones. Forest is difficult, Spurs is difficult, Brighton away is difficult coming up. I'll be covering them on the channel. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. Really appreciate it. Leave your thoughts down below, and I'll see you very, very soon.